Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're viewing this program from across the world. My name is Gary Thompson. I'm a business development consultant by profession. I'm a humanitarian by nature, and I'm the self-published author for several books. The title of this program is The Investor's Guide. The main objective of this program is to be able to provide a high content of information that helps business leaders to make better business decisions. So for example, on this platform, you will learn about debt capital, equity capital, credit capital, and smart capital. And the importance of understanding these platforms is to help you to understand the portfolios that exist, how to access these portfolios, how to leverage, and how to mitigate capital markets. But beyond all of this, we will also be helping you to understand business and how business works. In getting into business, we often talk about you understanding the accommodators and the enablers, because it is understanding the accommodators and the enablers and being able to build out relationships with the accommodators and enablers is what's going to help your business to cash flow. So these are the kind of information among so many others that we're going to bring to you. Today, we have a subject matter expert, and she specializes in a number of different fields. One, she's an author. She has just written this new book titled Reverse Diabetes. She is a pharmacist for over 30 years. She's a transformational and health coach, and so much more. And I'm speaking here today of no other than Phyllis Weaver. So Phyllis, welcome to Investor's Guide. I must say it's such an honor and a pleasure to have you in the studio today. Welcome.
Thank you.
Awesome. The first question I want to put to you today is, who are some of those persons who inspired you in the field that you're in right now? I know you represent many fields, but you're a pharmacist. You spent over 30 years in this field. You are a health and transformational wellness coach. And I know that you have accomplished a whole lot for yourself. You're an author also. And who are those persons that influenced you in this particular field, these fields?
Well, as far as pharmacy, that actually was not my dream.
Okay.
I started out as a psychologist, and then I later became a biologist. I had a master's in biology, and I wanted to marry those two together. And I actually to be a psychobiologist, and I actually landed a position with McNeil Pharmaceuticals doing that. And I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do. But then once I started the position, I didn't have the heart or the stomach to do research on animals. It was distressing to me. So I ended up quitting that job. And while I had been in graduate school at Hampton University, I was teaching in the biology department, and some recruiters came from Howard University, and my friends convinced me to visit the pharmacy school. And that's when I first got a taste of pharmacy. And so I went on and I applied to Howard, and I also applied to another school that was in Virginia because I knew that that was a lot less expensive. And so when I decided to quit at McNeil, I was also at the same time, I was invited to go attend the pharmacy schools, both of them. With the Howard, they had promised a full scholarship and, this, that, and the other, and that fell through. And so I ended up attending Medical College of Virginia in Richmond, Virginia, which is now called VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University School of Pharmacy. And so that's how I got into pharmacy. And so it was kind of indirect way to get there, but that's what happened with that. And I really believe that that God routed me there. There's some situations that came out later in my life, which led me to believe that this was his plan. And so that's how I got into pharmacy. A lot of family wanted me to do other things, like go to medical school or do this, that, and the other. But I I actually attended a medical school program, but I was like passing out from the surgeries, and it was like, oh, I don't like blood. I don't think so. So anyway, that's how I got there. And as far as the health and the transformational health and wellness coaching, and I also do life coaching as well. I ended up doing that because while being a pharmacist, I always was doing counseling and offering suggestions for their health and for fitness. And so it just kind of fell into place. I actually lost my job, and this was the opportunity that to attend the coaching school. I had been wanting to do that for about 10 years, but because of my work schedule, it was just too overwhelming being a single mother and trying to go to school and working full time with a demanding pharmacy position. It was just too much. And so when I lost my job, it gave me an opportunity. I had the spare hours to study and do that. And so that's how I ended up in those two areas.
Okay. Now, what I've noticed is that you have taken 30 plus years of experience and you have now collapsed all of that into starting your own business, your own brand. You are the manager, business owner, for the business known as Discover Ultimate Health LLC. And I really love that because as I talk with you and I get to know you more, I recognize that your key focus is to provide health solution to millions of people that are suffering from chronic illness. And I want us to talk a little bit about your business and your brand in terms of what it does, because one of your focus is reversing chronic illnesses. And to complement that process, you have just released a book titled Reverse Diabetes. Tell us a little bit about this. And I think that you're onto something that is very unique because I do believe diabetes, high blood pressure, it's perhaps one of the biggest killers that we have in the world. From hypertension, we can see that 110 million persons die every year from hypertension. And what your research has led you to do is to develop formulas, develop systems that can help to reverse this entire process and prolong longevity, prolong life. And tell us a little bit about this.
Well, actually, the journey towards the reversing chronic illness actually started from me. While I was working, I unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, was diagnosed with a whole handful of autoimmune diseases. And I know part of it came from the working conditions. And so I was really, really sick. I had fibromyalgia, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. I was going through migraine headaches for many, many years, and a whole host of other supplement diseases like Raynaud's and mixed connective tissue disorder, all of that. And so at one point it was debilitating. And I think that's how ultimately I lost my job, because of those health issues. And so there was at one point, I actually thought that I was dying because all of my organ systems started shutting down. And I see myself right now as a miracle because a lot of people didn't think I was going to make it. So once again, I believe that God gave me this inspiration. I decided right then, I'm like, this is not going to take me out. I've had a family member and I've had a couple friends that passed away from lupus, and this is not going to take me out. And so I did a lot of research. I researched for about 3 years because I was having problems with all the medications. I tend to have a lot of allergic reactions to medications and things. And so I came up with different formulas, and it was trial and error, and came up with this program. And it's that program that I use now for my health coaching. And it was like the format, or the format that I used to create my book. And the reason that I do diabetes is because so many people in my family have diabetes. On my father actually had diabetes. All of my father's uh, uncles and aunts on his mother's side, including my grandmother, had diabetes. Then on my mother's side, one of her brothers wasn't aware that he had diabetes, and he was working on a car with his son, and a tool fell on his foot. He didn't really pay much attention, and then later on down the line, his foot would his toe wouldn't heal, and so he ended up having to have that toe amputated. And then it led to gangrene. They didn't get it all, and gangrene. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, and then gangrene continued in his foot, and he had his foot amputated, and it still was so bad that he ended up having his leg amputated. And so that all of that is all part of my decision to go in that direction, because I wanted to help people prevent them from losing limbs. And then as far as the hypertension that runs in my family, my mother had hypertension, and it led to her having heart disease, and she ended up passing away fairly young, about my age actually, from a stroke and an aneurysm. And so these are some of the catalysts for me going into this direction.
I do believe that that's a powerful, story. It's sad, but I do believe that what is powerful about this and inspiring about this is that you leverage your experiences, not so good experience in terms of health management, and you have made that your stepping stone and your pathway to innovate a new product, to innovate a new brand, and to write a new book. And you're now positioning yourself to make global impact with that. I'm really happy to be alongside you to provide you with some of the technical support to make this happen for yourself. So I want to give you tremendous, respect, because I do believe that the average person who is going through a situation tend to become overwhelmed by what they're going through to the extent that they shut down. But instead of you shutting down, you become solution oriented, and you went into the research to get your facts together, and then you were able to use your experience as a chemist, your experience as a biologist, your experience as a psychologist, and you bring all of this together, and you now you're making impact with your product, because your product now is not, it didn't only help you, but you can now, because of your innovation, you can now help hundreds of thousands and perhaps millions of people across the world who are going through similar experiences. So, I really love that story. How would you define your profession? And I know because of your different skill sets, and you're in different field, but how would you define it?
As far as as pharmacy is more analytical, I do fall into a different category of pharmacists.
But
I would,
as a pharmacist, you do compounding, right?
oh yes, as a pharmacist, that's one of my positions. Yes, we do compounding, but when the last pharmacy position that I worked, I was in the overnight pharmacist, and one of our key uh, responsibilities was to do the compounding. So that, along with all the other things, of course, uh, the third shift didn't have technician help. And so it was like a full service by one person. So that's where all of the counseling, not just, the data entry and all of that, and talking to the hospital staff and, of course, helping patients with their over-the-counter needs and everything. But we also did specialty products for those who needed something that wasn't one of the formulas that came straight from a manufacturing company. So we did formulations for babies, and then some for like hormonal things for women. And we made a lot of, I guess you would call, slurries for children and adults who weren't able to swallow pills and capsules. And so we would have to grind down the tablets into a powder form and mix it with different solutions and come up with the formulation that was easier for them to ingest.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so I also participated in a lot of blind studies. Different companies or some doctors' offices were performing studies, especially with ADHD studies and things. And we would create the double blind studies for them. So I participated in quite a bit of things. But yeah, at one time, my pharmacy was the only one that created this special butt cream. And so, it's just, yes, I did a lot of compounding and other things.
Awesome. Um, I brought the conversation here because what I want to do is to establish that you are no newcomer, and you're not experimenting. You have years of experience in your field, and what you're doing, you're leveraging that experience as a pharmacist, as a biologist, as a psychologist, and to really bring something of substance into the market. But what I've recognized is that throughout your life there has been a number of transformation, and one of those transformations I've seen is that while you're a pharmacist, while you're a biologist, while you study psychology and you practice psychology, you are also what is known as a transformational and wellness coach. Um, what is the relationship between your field as a chemist, your field as a pharmacist, a biologist, to being that of a transformational and wellness coach?
Well, by combining all of that, I'm able to understand people better, able to look not just strictly at science, but also sociology, psychology of the situation, and realize that a lot of illnesses start with emotions. And so by listening to people, where some pharmacists unfortunately lack that ability because they're linear and it's only about the science, but there's more to health and wellness and communicating with people than just the science of here, take this drug and you're going to be okay. A lot of with the science, with the chemistry, we did need to, in pharmacy school, we had to learn how each drug was formulated, know the chemical structure of them, what brings them together, what happens to them when they break down in the system, when they're combined with other medications. And a lot of times where physicians will write prescriptions for this symptom and for this symptom, and then it sometimes those medications create a perfect storm where, yeah, it might take care of this, it might take care of that, but then it creates 3 more problems. And so with that being said, I'm kind of like an opposite from most pharmacists. I look at ways to remove medications and come up with ideas where you can find natural ways to heal. Because when you find the right, what is the word I want to say, formula for health, you don't have to use all those pharmaceuticals. Many of the pharmaceuticals came from plants anyway. So if you can do something that's natural, that's from the earth, that's not adulterated with all these extra chemicals, fillers and things, then people can get better instead of continuing to get worse and worse and worse because of all these side effects. So I try to eliminate, instead of saying, oh, well, you need to add this medication because of this. I'm like, no, you don't. Just look at what's going on here. What are they doing properly? What are they doing incorrectly? What are they eating? Are they sleeping? Are they exercising? Are they doing, just don't just throw pills at them and think that's going to be the magic potion. It's not like that. And so that's how I marry everything together.
I really, really love what you said. It's what they're eating and where is it coming from. Are some of the things that we definitely need to look at, because if you're eating foods that is full of genetical modification, fertilization, all of these things have those negative effects. But I don't want to get into that now. I want to just tap into some of the things that you would have said. What I'm seeing is that our habits that we're holding on to and our inability to form new habits as relates to what we eat, I believe is a major part of the equation why people, sometimes knowingly um, expose themselves to eating habits that is not right. And let's take, for example, one of the things that we see has a diet, if you're a diabetes or hypertension case, things like sugar, you should be able to stay away from it completely, because these are things that triggers the negative effects that you get. But I find that because people would have formed habits over many years that if you're making some tea, it has to have a lot of sugar. If you're making porridge, it has to have sugar. And every time you use those things as a diabetic or as a hypertension case, you're not making things better, you're making it worse. All right. Um, I'm saying this because the fact that I love that you have had transformation and health wellness coach. And I do believe that the transformation is relevant to change people's mindset. And I can recall my mom tells me a story because she lived with my sister in North America and she observed her. And that is, she's young, she's healthy, but because of what she knows, sugar is not in her house. So what she does to supplement sugar, I heard she would get bananas, which is a sweetener, and she would incorporate it into perhaps her porridge, and that becomes a sweetener. So simple things like that I think that people can do. And I do believe that I know that's where you're going because I have studied some of your platforms, some of your videos, and I see what is coming out there. So I really love that, you make it easier for a person to transform from habits that is not serving their health, serving their interest, into adopting habits that is much better for their lifestyle. Having said that, can we talk a little bit about your book? Your book is titled Reverse Diabetes, and I know that that book has a ton of techniques, and I know that you have many other books that follow. But tell us a little bit about um, this new book, Reverse Diabetes.
This reverse diabetes is actually an educational book. It gives details about type 1 diabetes, which is not my primary focus. What is type 2 diabetes? What is pre-diabetes? And all of the steps that you can follow in order to reverse it is not only educational, but it's also an instructional and interactive book. It's a combination of a book to read as well as a workbook is included in it. And so it's a process for them to go through for a year, and it's step by step what you need to do. And I actually have my book right here. And so, you start out with, what's the first thing you want to do? And, what are you going through? How do you get started with this? And so we go through what are their thoughts? What's going on with them? How is diabetes affecting them mentally, physically, spiritually? Because it affects not only them, and it also affects their family. If they are employed, it affects them at work, how they function, how they communicate with people. Because one thing with diabetes is the more stress that's in your life, the more it shows up. And so my program actually goes through, you start out with a health assessment. You have to have an accountability partner. You have to follow the different rules. You go through like a whole bunch of steps. And then the ultimate is to have a complete transformation. And so it's broken down in 90-day increments. And so you have a journal, I have a food examples of menus that they can follow and exercises that's more geared to people with diabetes, because a lot of times because of their legs and their feet and circulation issues, some of the exercises aren't appropriate for them. It could do more damage than to help. And so I go through the whole program, what they need to do step by step. And I give them ways to contact me if they need more assistance and accountability. But I'm glad that you brought up the word habit, because that is the title of like the program that I'm using. When I was in health coaching school, that was the one thing that they pushed in our heads. You know, we are experts in changing people's habits or helping people to change their habits. And, you know, changing a habit doesn't happen overnight.
It's a
But
process.
it's a
Sometimes a long
process,
process.
a very
I
long
know.
process.
I know.
And if you can change just one habit, it can really change your whole life. And so, so I have a mastery in transformational health coaching. And so I didn't just go to the basic health coaching school. I continued and became a master in transformational coaching, as well as transformational life coaching and health coaching.
So I'm so happy to hear that. We have a lot of work to do moving forward. I believe, that you have tremendous substance and tremendous value. And I'm happy to be working alongside you to bring visibility to what you're doing, and to also position your brand in front of your ideal and consumers. Talk to me a little bit about Discover Ultimate Health LLC. I know that this operation would have started about 2 years ago. And what is your vision for Discover Ultimate Health LLC?
I have big visions for it. At first, I had planned for Discover Ultimate Health to just be strictly diabetes. And I had a different plan where I wanted to have like a building where people would come in and I'd do health assessments and show them how to use their, glucose monitors, this, that, and the other, and just pretty much like a facility, and have it broken down to like a counseling center on the side, and combined with other, I guess, adjunct health departments like physical therapy and all of that. So that's what was my initial thought process. And then COVID came, and I decided to just change it to being focused on the habit changing. But as far as the Discover Ultimate Health, I have other products that I've created that's under the Discover Ultimate Health umbrella. And it's all types of wellness kits and things to help with the health. I plan to have like vitamins that are recommended that will help with the program, skincare to help with circulation of their skin, and all different elements that's not just about plain straight up health. I don't know if that's clear.
Yeah, that is absolutely clear. And I do believe that your platform, is useful to people across the world. And I do see your brand being built up to make, not just local impact, but global impact. Again, I'm happy to be working alongside you to help to make this happen. We have a lot of talking to do, and because there's a number of things to streamline, and then we will identify the step-by-step approach that we can support you with, and to really make the level of impact, the kind of impact of this brand. I know that millions of people suffer with hypertension, and in most cases, they turn to a pill. And once you start taking that pill, it's a life sentence. You don't ever come off of it. It don't ever reverse. And what I love about your research is that, and some of the research that we're doing, hypertension is something that can be reversed by changing the diet, by uptaking in specific minerals. And with this kind of information, I believe it can help to reduce global death from hypertension. I mean, today is 110 million, and that's not a small number. That's a huge chunk of our population that, we lose due to hypertension. So the research that you're doing, the work that you're doing, I'm absolutely certain can help in reversing that process. There are things for us to talk about, but we're not going to discuss that here. We'll discuss that, at a more confidential level. But you're on a tremendous path here. So there's work to be done moving forward, and I'm happy to be in contact with you. Now, let us talk about your journey a little bit more. What are some of the challenges that you were faced with as you decided to get into business? As you decided to take a big leap into what you're doing? What I've learned is that you have been making personal investment into your vision. But what are some of those challenges that you have been faced with to amplify impact and to take this operation to where it needs to be?
One of the biggest challenges is being in a position where people know that I exist.
Visibility.
Visibility, and to know that there are other options, and I'm here. And to know, to get my voice out so that they know, and to actually get my story out, because one of the things that I failed to say is that by doing all of that research and all of the things that I went through, I am now healed. No longer have fibromyalgia, no longer have migraine headaches. I had migraine headaches for almost 30 years.
Wow.
And I did have high blood pressure because of all of the stress that I went through. And I don't have high blood pressure. And people do call high blood pressure and hypertension the silent killer, because you really don't know that your blood pressure is high until maybe you get a nosebleed, maybe you'll get a really bad headache, maybe something worse, you know, you end up with a stroke. You never know.
Yeah,
But
because those are some of the effects, stroke, heart failure, kidney failures, and so forth. Yeah.
yes, all of that. Oh, and I failed to say that my uncle that lost his leg, he ended up having problems with his kidney, and my mother ended up with kidney failure. She was on dialysis for over 10 years. So I'm well aware of all of the issues that go with it because of my family experience and my own experience. But as far as some of the roadblocks for me has been finding the ideal client. And even though sometimes I think that I have the ideal client, for some reason they have not wanted to invest in their health. People seem to spend so much money on other things, tangible things, but you only have one body, you only have one life.
Yep.
And so many people are passing away prematurely because they don't want to take that step on their health, because they say, well, I feel all right, I can deal with this, but they'll spend a boatload of money on other things. So some of the setbacks have been the visibility, the additional funding to continue putting in more money into a program and into a dream and into a vision that I know that can change people's lives, where right now they might be spending $300 a month on prescriptions and doctor visits, and they could take that $300 towards their health, and they don't have to spend that kind of money anymore. Like maybe in 6 months or a year,
Yeah.
they don't have that debt. What if you can eliminate that $300? And I know some people are even spending $500 to $1,000 a month on medications. And if they would just get that switch in the mindset, then just kind of think more in the future. How would that impact their family? How would that impact their finances? And they would feel better. They'd be a whole new person. That's where I came up with the transformational. But these are some of the things
Sure,
that,
sure, sure. And I understand what you're saying, because I am in contact with persons that live with hypertension. And what I've seen is that there is a strong element of trust from where they're sourcing the current medication, although there is no consistency in the desired relief that they're looking for. But in spite of that, because it comes from an established environment, an element of trust is there. When you recommend the alternative that they may try from time to time and see it's working, they still reverse back to the old tradition, to the old habits that is not working for them. So I do believe a lot of mindset change is necessary, and I'm going to work with you to develop a game plan to address that particular issue. And of course, I'll be happy to talk with you about different financial instruments, whether it's debt, equity, or credit, or smart capital, that we can look at to ensure that the operation is given the kind of capital injection that it needs to help it to leapfrog. So those are things that we'll talk about. Tell me now, how do you want to be remembered? as you embark on this transformational journey, what is the legacy that you want to create? How do you want to be remembered?
Um, Great question. But can I just say one thing before
Go
I
ahead.
answer this one?
Go ahead.
Because your comment just a minute ago triggered something in my mind. My mind is, I'm always thinking.
I know. As an
It's
entrepreneur,
hard.
as an innovator, it's going to be happening. I know. Yeah,
Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night because I have this thought. I was like, I have to write this down or I'm going to forget it.
I
But
know.
anyway, when you said, they're the trust factor that they have with the established community, uh, at one time, for many, many years, pharmacists was the number one trusted. They were number one over clergy, over, all of the people that you would think, would be most trusted. But pharmacists for many, many years was number one trusted and of all professions. But as far as, physicians, I've actually spoken with some physicians and they said, well, I'm a allopath. I just strictly go by
The book.
the science. Yes, the science. I'm like, but those medications are killing people, but anyway, so just real quick, a story. I had a patient who had a bag full of medications, and I was going over them with her, and I said, well, how are you taking this medication? I don't know. I mean, I said, what do you mean you don't know? I don't know. I just do what the doctor says. I said, well, tell me, how are you taking it? Tell me how many times a day are you taking it, and do you know what it's for? I don't know what it's for. He just said, take it. I said, okay. So are you taking this one time a day, 2 times a day, 3 times a day? What's your schedule? I just take it, I take it when I remember. I take it at least one time a day. And that type of conversation makes my brain kind of go crazy. And it's these people, patients, who grab my heart, and I'm like, oh my goodness, if only I could just sit down with them and, you know, do something, some kind of magic in their brain. It's like,
To get that instant change you want, I know.
yes, it's like, no, if you don't follow, even if you have this prescription, you have to know what is going in your body and why. You don't just put some kind of foreign substance in your body and don't even know what it is, what it's for, how you're supposed to take it properly. And that's also how we're losing people. We're losing them
Yep.
because of, for lack of a better word, ignorance to the process. So if you're going to follow a physician, then at least follow what he says exactly to do. And then when you're doing that and when it's not working, then he knows or she knows that, oh, I need to make a change. But if you're not even following it properly, then you're doing everyone in the healthcare arena who's trying to help you a disservice, and not only a disservice to yourself, but to everyone who's trying to help you. So back to your question, the impact that I want to have on the world and to be remembered is that because of the innovations, because of my heart, my deep passion for people to have a fulfilled, healthy, energetic, long life, I want to be remembered that I did something about it. And by them following at least one or two people following my example, and even looking at what change I have in my life, then say, well, she did this for herself. She did have a whole generation of people following what she did, who made my mom live a little longer, who made a whole segment of people who were just eating or doing what grandma, granddaddy, my great, this is what mama did, this what how mama did it, this how mama ate or whatever, and say, I'm going to follow this. And now all the generations going forward will have a more healthy, longer life, and can ultimately maybe change the whole course of the way healthcare is provided, because I did it for myself. I was honestly at a point where I couldn't even get out of the bed. To get out of the bed, I had to will myself kind of roll, do like
Yeah,
that and
yeah,
roll over and fall on the floor and crawl. That's where I was. I had to crawl and then find something to pull myself up. And when you're at that point where you can't move, you can't breathe, it feels like your brain is going to explode out your head, and you're in a deep depression from that, because feel like you're all alone and no one understands. um it Either you were gonna go into a hole and not come out, or you're gonna pull something deep and within you and say, this is not gonna happen like this, and I'm gonna do something for myself and also share this with the world, so that there are no more people who are ready to give up because they're in so much pain and suffering. There's a way. And so that's how I want to be remembered, as someone who really had an impact on someone's life and helped them out of that depression of being in chronic pain and chronic illness, and where doctors say, well, there's nothing else we can do for you. You either going to have to live with it, or you might pass away. So that's my impact.
I do believe that that's brilliant, to wanting to live your life, to give of service, to give of value. And that's to help people to, reverse chronic illnesses, prolong their life cycle, and, live a better quality of life. I do believe that that is, admirable. And I do believe that as human beings, and that's the highest service that we can give when we make that decision to serve humanity. So I'm coming to the last question now. Is there anything that you want to say that I might not have asked? And this is a time for you to say it.
Wow, we've covered so much. I'm I just want to, ask, you mean ask a question to you?
Go ahead.
I just want to ask you, how is it that how do you think that I can pivot to a point where people do know that that there is someone out there who really, truly wants to help, and that is not all about trying to get money, that I truly want to make a change in their lives so that they can have a legacy of health in their family.
Brilliant question. Brilliant question. The answer to that question is in that book that you have, the 10X Branding and Marketing LLC. And we have written that book after years of research. And while we have researched, we are seeing that over 10% of business startup fail within the first year, and over 50% fail by year 5, and only 33% survive after the 10-year life cycle. So once they're failing, it means that they're now pivoting. What we have also done, we have studied the top 100 companies, and we see why they're succeeding. They're succeeding because they have, strong corporate leadership. And when I talk of corporate leadership, it means that they're proactive, they're thinking ahead, they're seeing beyond problems. They're taking informed action to achieve desired results. They have a strong corporate culture. And when you're building out your corporate culture, you want to have 4 areas of impact. The book that you have talk about that. That's one of the books that I have recently published. And it's important to understand, your market, where we call market, and market research and market intelligence. In doing business, you want to be market oriented and market sensitive. And the top 100 companies are leveraging all of these business models, business ecosystems, to position their business to be successful. And the top 100 companies, they earn between $6 billion USD annually, all the way up to $220 billion in revenue. And they're able to earn that because they have a system. So what we have done at Global Capital Inc. and 10X Branding and Marketing LLC out of New York, we have studied these phenomenal why businesses are failing. We have studied the phenomenal why businesses are being successful. And we have built out what we call the business success ecosystem that gives you a step-by-step approach of things that you can do to position your business, your ideas, and your brand for success. So in talking with you, I'm having a clear mental picture as to steps that can be taken and to move your operation forward. For us, it begins with you understanding your value proposition, and listening to you, you have a very clear idea about your value proposition. And we're going to go deeper into that because you want to build your value proposition not only to impact your target market, but you want to think about your workforce, because your workforce are the people that are your frontline workers. And you have to have a game plan to keep them motivated, to reduce absenteeism and staff turnover. You asked me a question and I can talk for the rest of the day on the subject. Right. But I'm with you 101%. I know where you're at, and I know exactly practical steps that we can take to ensure that you're getting the visibility, you're getting the reach, you're getting the impact, you're getting the conversion, and you're doing everything the right way. So you're able to build confidence, you're able to build trust, and ultimately you're able to build credibility in what you're doing. So the journey has only just begun. I'm happy that I'm here with you to give you that support that you need to scale and leapfrog your vision. And I'm truly excited about this journey. So I trust that it did answer your question.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about, but I must say it has been a pleasure talking with you. And for the public, you have been listening to Phyllis Weaver. She is a multi-talented individual. She has several, high-level masters behind her name. She knows what she's doing in terms of, pharmacy. And as a pharmacist, she knows what she's doing as a transformational leader. And she's also a product innovator, just not any ordinary product innovator. She's producing health products with the primary objective of prolonging life and ensuring that her consumers, they're not only prolonging their life, but they are healthier, they are stronger, they're happier, and they're positioned to really, embrace the highest level of quality out of life. So with that being said, I want to thank you for your time today. And I'm looking forward to do this with you more often, because what I know and what I know about you, what we have touched on today is only scratching the surface. You have so many different pockets of talent that what I want to do is, over a period of time, is to take specific areas and to really blow them up, so as to give you the kind of recognition that you need at this particular stage of your business. So with that, I want to say thank you for your time, and I'll see you soon again.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
You're most welcome. It's my pleasure having you here. All right, so thanks again, everyone. And thanks again, Phyllis. And we'll be talking soon.
Thank you.
Welcome.